Welcome to the second episode of In the Lab. I'm Ben Sheltron, your host, with my co-host,
Dennis Fry.
And today we're going to be talking about the struggles of launching your own business.
Yes, the struggle is real.
Yeah, it is. And what has it been? 4 months since our previous upload?
It's been a little minute. It's been a minute, yeah. At least 3 months.
So behind the scenes, we've been working like Santa's elves, trying to get this up and going, and it is a project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think anybody who's starting a business venture, if it's a physical product, there are some things you should know. And
yes,
I think
many things you should know.
there's many things you should know. Yeah. What's a good place to start?
I think.
What do you think is one of our biggest setbacks or things holding us back from just like selling the product?
I think. Well, I think if we're going to do this for somebody who's contemplating whether or not they should produce something physical and sell it, you should probably ask yourself what you're willing to do to get to that stage before you start.
That is, this could be a warning. It's me and my
cautionary
wife, Kari.
tale.
Yeah, me and my wife, Kari, we took that trip to the dunes and did the dune climb. And we thought the lake was right over the first dune, and it turned out it was 3.7 miles to get out there. And
yes,
I feel like it's kind of like that. You go over the first hill and you're like, yeah, I made it. And then there's bigger ones behind it. And you're like, oh,
there's it's the state. That's actually your and Kari's hike is like, that is almost to the T. The model for, well, it's not just physical, but it can be anything business, but there's the, uninformed optimism, I think, is the first leg where you're going up. And then when you realize, oh, this is not going to be like the easy thing or it's not going to be nearly
it's not
as easy
downhill
as I
from here.
And then you go down and you're like, oh, wow. Then reality hits you and you're like, okay, I wish I could remember all those legs, but yeah, it's definitely like that. And most people tap out before they get to the second or third stage.
On the way back, we encountered a few people who were not prepared, and they didn't have water. There was some different, like, no snacks, anything like that. And we're like, hey, like, you might want to get some more water. And they're like, how far is it? And I'm like, oh, you're just starting. This is not, you're not even close.
It's a trek.
And they turned around and they went back. Like once they realized that it wasn't just over the first or dune or even the second, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And just like that, a business can be very intimidating. Yeah, there's that initial optimism. You get in there and you're trucking away and you learn a bunch of things. You're excited about it. And then you realize, oh, I'm just starting to understand the things that I don't know. And the things that I don't know are there's a crazy amount, crazy mountain of unknowns.
Well, I think, I think for anybody starting to do a business venture where they're going to produce something themselves, certainly, I guess speaking from my end, having reliable means to produce it is a big thing.
That's true. Yeah.
That's big. It can be a make or break. So for, our audience listening, did we talk about any of that in the first episode? I don't really know what all we covered.
I think we talked about our origin story, right? and I'm not afraid to like cover or like maybe repeat something, but not necessarily go down the whole like origin story vibe.
Yeah, but so I mentioned that I've been in machining and stuff, and that I bought bought a machine. So just that's the brief recap. Is I have my own very small shop at my residential place, and bought a machine used a number of years ago. I think maybe 2018, somewhere around there, maybe 6-7 years. Used mini mill, 3-axis mill. And it's been a decent machine, but it's given me fits recently. And I've tried all the fixes I know. I mean, I'm not a repair guy by nature. I know more about programming and stuff like that and setting them up and running them. But I know enough to troubleshoot, and I've done everything that I can to get the machine to run and get over these alarms where it just won't run. The spindle turns on and then it just stops. And I'm kind of at an impasse where I've exhausted all that I know, and looked up so far and read on different obscure machinist threads with people that have had the same issues or similar. And so, yeah, so I mean, that's a big hindrance if you don't have loads of money to throw at things, and depending on how you're going to make the product and what it is, you definitely have to probably budget for more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
I
think
that'd be, definitely if I could go back and tell my, former self, hey, this is what you're going to encounter. I might have approached things differently, at least in terms of where I spent my money, where, at what time, because you can quickly use all your resources and then realize, oh, I have this big expense to fix this or get something new, and I have nothing left to spend it on. So that's, I think, the method of how you're making something factors into it big. Everything's unique. I mean, what we're doing is unique. We're seeing some machining precision parts out of aluminum, and which is not a hard metal to machine, thankfully. But
it's very intricate.
Yeah, getting to where we're at took some time and iterations and custom fixturing and all that stuff. So, getting all that stuff done and then your machine craps on you is disheartening. So part of that is you have to be resilient, I guess, too, because
perseverance.
Everything along that journey, big or small, there's gonna be things that you're gonna be like, okay, whether it's depending on somebody outside to do something and they can't do it or whatever, you have to be prepared to face those challenges and be like, okay, how am I going to solve this problem? It's a lot of problem solving. I think you have to enjoy that. If you don't enjoy problem solving, don't ever start a business. That's what I would say.
That's almost the job title is just you're a problem solver, you're a troubleshooter. And I think the big thing is if you don't have loads of money to just throw at it, it's going to take time.
You're essentially when you have a lot of capital to throw at something, you're just putting that on somebody else's plate. Say, hey, can you solve this problem for me?
Exactly.
Right.
And so a lot of the things that we run into, if we can't afford to hire somebody in or outsource something, it's literally on us. We have to take that on. It's like, how am I going to do this? I've never, made a part like this. I've never, maybe it's working with other manufacturers or
because we're essentially, we are essentially bootstrapping, I guess, for the audience. Like, we're mostly bootstrapping. It's all self-funded stuff, and neither of us are flush with a bunch of cash, so we have to figure out a way to do it economical, but leverage everything we have to the max we can. So
and I think like starting out, it's good to know that, especially if you don't have money, like the amount of time you have to spend is incredible. And just to give them some idea, like from my initial idea for this project,
oh goodness,
it has been 8 years from the first conception of this idea to where we're at now. And we're
not to market yet. We're not even to market. So,
it's,
but we're close, which, it's been an awesome journey just to see from your sketch an idea. Like, I think I want to try and make this to where it's at now. It's pretty cool, but it does. The amount of time that it's going to require, especially being a part-time venture, stretches it out.
I think like a lot of times we start a business or something and we walk into it thinking this is going to be the thing that just, I bank on and it's going to solve all my problems. The thing is you're walking into a load of problems that you're going to have to solve. And the cool thing is one day the payout, it is going to be good and it's going to be awesome. But at the same time, like you got to work to get there and sometimes years. And I think that's just something that it's super easy to overlook because it's like the whole metaphor of the dunes. Like
Yeah.
you look at this from what you know and you say, okay, I got to get from here to here, when really you have to get from here to way over there. And you had no
Yeah. You just
idea.
don't know. You just don't
Yeah.
know it.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sometimes the path that you take to get to an outcome is not the path, or the path that you think you have to take to get to an outcome is not the path that you end up taking. And sometimes it ends up being a lot longer of a journey. And
Yeah.
I
For sure.
would definitely stress that, because it's just, that's probably the biggest part of it. If you're not flush with cash, is you have to
Yeah.
do all the problem solving and figure out how to do things on a budget, which it really just,
Yeah.
it's a matter of time.
I think um, another aspect to it too is if you I mean, and maybe this is just a question to throw your way. If you could go back, would you pick something else that would just be simpler and easier just because it would make you money, or would you still go down the route you chose because it's something that you're passionate about and you enjoy and it kind of fits with, I mean, it fits with your passions.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what to, like, I'm trying to think of something like obscure, but like if you would just create a widget that was something you didn't really care about, but just made you money, and maybe it was going to take you 3 years to develop versus 8, would you choose that? Or, yeah, let's just say 4. We'll say 4, cut it in half, right? But then you have
I've,
zero progress on the headphones. So, like, would
I
you?
I have struggled with this a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest and vulnerable here. Yeah, it's been a little rough going at certain points, and wondering like, okay, like how long is this going to
Yeah,
take?
right. Because,
And
right, you don't
because
want to make,
we've got up to several, peaks, and we're like,
yeah.
hey, we're ready. No, we're not. Okay.
Hooray! No,
Yeah.
no.
And so, which has been, disappointing, but at the same time, it's like we know, I feel like at this point we know the last few steps, and maybe there's another little bit of a dune, but I feel
Well,
like we're
and
seeing the,
I mean, I think to build up at least to the audience, what at least I feel my perception of things is that we could already beat a market if you really just wanted, if you didn't
oh
care.
yeah,
I mean, because you
that's
could have
true.
launched something. So I think it kind of goes back to, it is something you're passionate about,
It
and
really
because
is.
it is, you you are tending to it with a greater amount of care than you would something that is just purely for just making money, right? That you
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Yep.
have
And
any
I
sort of connection with. So I feel like
and
that,
for
because I remember you
sorry.
like EQ testing and stuff, and you're like, no, that's not right. Like, you can't. This is not. It doesn't sound the way it needs to. So and I'm just like, okay, like, like this is his baby and this product, so he wants it to be like exactly what he wants it to be.
Yeah.
So
And I think I had this upbringing where it's, I don't know, it's a value to me, that I would not sell anything that I wouldn't want to use for my own
right,
personal use. And
which is exactly
I
right. You're
think
making something that you would want to own if somebody else made it
exactly.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah. And like
yeah,
I saw a problem within the headphones that we have, and I was willing to take a shot at fixing this. Some
yeah,
people will argue that it's not a problem, but
yeah,
I think it for me it was, and in the type of studio use that I have. And I
yeah.
know there's a lot of other people in that same position where they would find something like this very useful. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was one of those things where I was passionate about it because it was something that wasn't out there that I wanted. And
Yeah.
I still am passionate about it. It's like when you have 8 years shoved into
Yeah.
something, you tend to, I don't
Right.
know, like it's kind of like a relationship. Sometimes there's like this love hate,
Love hate.
but
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
struggles for real. But at the same time, it's like me and in the headphones, we have history,
Yeah,
and I think it's like,
absolutely.
and
And
the other
people
thing
that
is,
get to know you and figure out you're doing that, if somebody, like when I would run into people like at pickleball and stuff that kind of knew you, and I think they would ask like, "Oh yeah, where's the headphone guy at?" Like they knew
yeah,
like, "Oh Ben, yeah, he's the headphone guy."
yeah. Even at work, like I have people approach me and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, are you that headphone guy?" I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's
So you
me.
have this local lore
Yeah,
already, which is cool. I mean,
yeah.
I
It's
think it's pretty
well,
awesome.
yeah. I have people at work that introduce me, and when they're introducing me to other employees or management, they're like, hey, like this guy, he's going to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we'll see about this.
Right.
But we won't count the chickens before they hatch.
Yeah,
But
right.
but yeah,
That's
I
so
think
funny.
going back to the passion part of it, like if this was a business venture that I wasn't passionate about, if that didn't align with some of my core things that really I'm curious about and I like diving into,
Yeah.
I think it would have failed a long time ago.
Right.
Probably, not much past the conception of the idea when I realized I had to start forking out money to make this.
Yeah. And all the time you put into just learning sound design and stuff like that, and the principles, acoustics and all. I mean, yeah, many, many hours with that, which I did not, I stayed more on the design side and stuff, but like,
yeah,
but
you have a stake in this too.
Right. But you would share, it was fun because you would call, if we were talking about it, you would share like all the things you're reading. So you basically, I got the condensed version. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to do all the work on the research, which was nice. So I would learn stuff from you.
Yeah. So on the sound design and some of those things, like, yeah, I've done a majority of that, but where we make a good team is when it comes to doing spreadsheets and budgeting and some different things like this. Like
I learned that the hard way already. Yeah. So yeah.
So
I got that in my skill set.
And what's cool is that's translated for me into other parts of my life where now I use that for my own like personal stuff and
definitely
other businesses.
Like switching from like the cons to the pros, what would you say some of the pros are of, if looking back, what you have probably taken away from just doing a business endeavor where you're like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have this if I hadn't have went down that road?
Yeah. So I wouldn't be married right now.
I mean, maybe not.
That's a huge one. I don't think so because I moved up here with the idea of launching the headphone business. And for those who didn't watch the first
did we mention that in the origin story or no?
We did.
Okay.
But just to give a really short recap. I moved from Nebraska, which I lived there a majority of my life, to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that was to launch the headphone business and network and things. And in that process, I met my now wife, and that wouldn't have happened. And Dennis here is a very good friend that it's just, he was best man at my wedding. So like, there's so much, like, I don't know, so much that has evolved from this venture, and it's been like an amazing journey. And I wouldn't say like it's because of the headphones, but I would say it's because of the drive to chase that,
Yeah. You were willing to, you're willing to try something. You're like, I think I can do this to start. I mean, you just started there. You're like, I think I can do this myself. And then you kind of figured out like, okay, this is going to be a project, like much bigger than I initially thought. And so at that point you're like, yeah, I want to do it. So you persisted with it and moved forward little at a time. And then you got to the point where it's like, this is a legit product that you need to like build into a business stuff. So you took that risk when I was like, hey man, like this is a good place to network and it'd be a good base for you to do stuff. You're just like, you thought about it and you're like, I'm going to take him up on this offer and just take this risk and, see what happens. So,
I think another like another big takeaway from me is there's nothing like seeing something in your head and then holding like the real thing in your hands.
Yeah.
Like, something about
100%.
Like, even with like, for those who don't know, me and you, we create music, right? We have this passion for like,
which is how we met. We did
exactly.
mention that in the origin story, right? Yeah. That was how we initially met.
Yeah. And we have this inert thing inside of us that we hear something in our head and we're like, hey, like I've got to record this. I've got to make this into a song. And there's something about taking just an idea and then having something tangible, something real that, bringing it to life, and the creative processes that are in there is so cool. And especially when you have like full control of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, yeah, I don't, I think it's just like probably one of the most satisfying things
Yeah,
that you can get out of a business is being like, wow,
100%.
we made this from an idea in our head.
I
Like,
think, yeah, 100%. Anytime you go, whether it's an artist doing visual media like painting or something, just anytime you have a concept or idea in your head and you can bring it into the world in some way, that's pretty magical. I think the whole process of creation where you bring something that did not previously exist, like here it is from my head.
yeah,
Now it's in the world. Pretty awesome.
yeah, it
So,
is. Yeah. And yeah, it's your baby,
right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. So for you, what would you say like has probably been something along the way since me and you joined on this where you're like, oof, like I don't know if I want to continue.
Oh,
I'm
like
sure
a
there's been
come to
plenty of
Jesus
those.
moment where I'm like,
Yeah, or you're like, dang, was this a good idea? Or maybe you're having that now.
I could be in that right now.
Um,
Maybe just the machine I purchased. Should I have purchased this one? I think there's probably a lot of smaller things like that where I can second guess. Was that a good strategic choice? Um, yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I'm still, even though like any roadblocks that we have to face to get around, I'm still really excited because I mean, I just feel it in my bones. I'm like, we're going to make this happen, even if it's not exactly when we
yeah,
want to. Um, so yeah, I think really for me, there's nothing where I'm just like, oh no, I wish I hadn't done that per se, but because you can always second guess. I mean, hindsight's always 2020. So you can look at something you did in the past and be like, well, that was terrible. I should have done this. But that's the nature of experience, right? Is it's the best teacher, but it's the most painful. So you have to go
exactly.
through something to get that experience to teach you. Um, so yeah, I mean, if I could go back, I'm sure my strategy for doing certain things would be different. But uh, like generally, I'm like, I think I'm going on the right path. Whether I execute 100% all the time, I'm not going to, and I don't expect myself to. But um, yeah, I mean
I would,
that's it. And you take notes. That's the thing is you definitely
yeah.
take notes on those. And you're like,
Hmm.
hey, if I do come up to this again, and maybe I won't, maybe I will, I won't. I could definitely need to learn from the experience A or B or whatever it was that I'm going to try a different strategy or go a different route because of whatever.
Yeah. And
So
I made a video about this. It's like a lot of times we look at failure as, oh, that's the worst outcome that there could be. This is like just the worst. And
right,
when really it's an obstacle, yes, but we should look at it and analyze it like data. Like,
yeah. I
okay,
mean,
here's one way
failure really is an opportunity. If you take
it
advantage
is.
of it, it's an opportunity. If you don't, then it's
Absolutely.
squandered. I mean, um, the I'm so the viewers don't or listeners and viewers don't know. I'm a manufacturing engineer right now, and that's one big thing in engineering is you have to let the data inform what you're going to do in the future. If you don't have any data to go off of, you can't really make any good sound
Yeah.
decisions.
You're going
So
by really gut feelings and
yeah,
like intuition, maybe feelings.
yeah, and like there is a place for you get experience does give you intuitions. Obviously, when you see
Hmm.
certain things, you're like, okay, well, I've seen this before, so I'm gonna at least test this out.
Yeah.
But
Now,
an
if you don't have the
intuition,
experience, though, then it's another
right?
story.
Yeah, an intuition's not totally invaluable, but definitely data is where it's at for helping you make sound decisions and stuff. So
Yeah,
the more you can get, the better off you are in making
exactly.
decisions.
The more
So
solid your data is, too, like the
yeah, and you have to be able to trust
better
it,
it is.
right? It has
Yep.
to be good data. Yep, absolutely.
So, but yeah, I think like, yeah, embrace failure, because it's going to
Yeah, don't be
happen.
afraid to fail. I
Yeah.
guess that's another thing too. Is if anybody's starting any businesses, just expect you're going to have small failures, big failures in between,
Hmm.
and you just have to be prepared for that. So
Yeah.
I think that's where different people have different temperaments and risk tolerances and stuff. And some people they're very risk averse, and that would crush them if just the
Yeah.
way their personality is. So you have to kind of know yourself, I think, before you would try and do something like that.
I think there's some people who are like naturally thick skinned and like
Mm-hmm.
failure that doesn't bother them. And then there's
Sometimes it makes them
people,
more like failure actually is a energizer for some people
yeah.
where they're like, hey, I'll try harder.
And for me, I'm a little bit of both. I like failure can definitely get to me, but
Yeah,
at the
same here.
same time, like especially if it's like failure after failure after failure.
It's the
But
eighth one in a row. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But at the same time, it's like I feel like along the way I've had some different mind shifts of how to look at that and how to take that and be like, I mean, once you've had some really big failures, you're like, this isn't that
Yeah.
bad. I've
Yeah.
had
And you're
worse,
just like,
you know.
I've seen worse than this. No big deal.
Yeah. And like, I tell you what, like I've designed some really elaborate things that were just complete flops. And I'm like, wow, I spent like,
Right.
200 plus hours on this and
Yeah.
it's garbage,
Right. Yeah.
and,
Yep.
and so that sometimes there are going to be things like that, but you have to take it at, like, hey, this is data, like this doesn't work,
Yeah.
and I think part of it is like there's a humility sign of it where you have to be humble enough to say, hey, yeah, like this was a bad idea, but like where are we going from here?
Yeah.
Like what happens next? And I think like having the resilience, that's really a big thing, having the resilience to say what's next, like where
Yeah.
do we go from here, rather than being, we're defeated. We can't go any farther. I'm done. Like I
Yeah.
just can't, I can't handle failure one more time.
I think, I think that is it. That's a huge aspect too, is if you try and keep yourself in humble mindset, you're going to fail. So you expect that that's going to happen and you're not overzealous for having perfect results every time and expecting that you will. So that, when you don't, then you're just, again, you're brought back to reality and you check, I just can't do this because it's, too much. Versus, just accepting like, oh, that was a bad call. So I need to learn from it and move on. That that's a different mindset and
Yeah.
it'll definitely that'll
And I think
change
like
your outcome.
I've heard this a couple different times in different ways, but like fail many times and fail quickly,
Yep. Fail
because
fast, fail
it can
cheap.
act, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and because it can be a lot more beneficial than like failing one time, waiting 3 or 4 months, and then coming back and failing again and then not figuring it out. The more times you fail consistently, the more you can like have that data fresh in your mind to be able to
Yeah.
analyze it. Okay, was this one a little better? Was this a little worse? And then kind of gradually step your way up to where you're actually progressing,
Mm-hmm.
versus the longer you have like a time span in between that, the harder it is to analyze that data, because maybe you didn't record it right, or
Yeah.
maybe like the time lapse, you just don't remember what that was,
100%. It's not fresh in your mind. So
Exactly.
you kind of lose it. Yeah. I'd say so. Definitely.
Yeah. So that was the cons. What are the pros from
Good,
your side? I'm
good
curious to
questions.
see
Yeah.
this.
The pros. Well, I think there's a certain level of confidence you get when you do solve problems. So, um, I think just this project as a whole being the first of its kind for me, where I'm like, I have to do all these things, and I can't go to somebody else and have them do it for me. I can get some avenues of help and stuff, but ultimately, like this, I have to make this work and figure out a way to do it. So even just figuring out how to process, the parts and um, you know, be economical with a 10 tool machine instead of 20, and how can you use the work envelope that's not the greatest size, but just squeeze everything we can out of the equipment that we do have and make it work. So I mean, I think there's some pride that comes with at least figuring some things out, even if I haven't figured everything out yet. That's okay. But it's good. It's a confidence builder when you do solve something, especially it's something that's a little foreign, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take my skill set of what I've got, and I know how to solve problems, so I'll just apply it to this and see where it goes. And so when you conquer things, you're okay, yeah, I have done stuff like this before, and it just kind of builds on where you've come from, and then you get a little more confidence in what you're able to do in your abilities, which is good. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to have a healthy amount of confidence. You don't want to be overconfident, but you don't want to be unsure of what you can do at the same time. So that's a big pro. Just the small wins that I've got where I've got now, lets me know what I can do going forward, I'm capable of. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big confidence booster. So that's probably the biggest thing I think that sticks out. Just having something that you get to point A to point B and you're like, okay, I made it. That's good. Now to
Yeah.
point C. So if I could
I
just
think
figure out how to repair machinery from
right,
scratch, I'll be good.
troubleshoot and repair and
I
do
don't
the
know if I want
electrical.
to. I
Yeah.
don't know if I want to learn how to do that.
But yeah, I would say another pro for me, I think, is kind of along the journey. Excuse me, I need to grab some water here. But along the journey, like the different people that we've met along the way has been
Oh
really
yeah,
cool.
yes,
Just meeting like people that whether it's a mix engineer that you or I have been following for years and listening to
yep,
advice, or um, or just like an acquaintance or someone who you wouldn't have met otherwise, and I think
yeah,
yeah, it's been really cool, and I don't want to give like too much prop to like someone because they have a huge following or something versus someone who doesn't,
yeah.
but it's just like the different people that you meet along the way is really cool.
I think so, and
And
I mean that's the. I think there's that just that community of people that are in the recording space in some capacity or music. Just everybody that we've been able to meet and at least become acquainted with or even friends with. That to me is all like is definitely very satisfying because anything you're in where people are passionate about something, it's fun to meet similar people with like mindedness in for music and stuff and creation like that. So it's fun just to be able to do something that is a business, but you're also, I mean, I would talk and hang out with those people even if I wasn't doing anything. Like, you know
exactly.
what I mean? So I think that's a
Hmm.
double bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you find people that are interested in stuff that you're interested in, and you just happen to be doing the business with it anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about, yeah, what's your one takeaway as far as if you were to give somebody, I don't know, some advice as far as what not to do when launching your own business? If you're like, hey,
Launching.
there's one thing that I've
Mm,
learned that it's just like, don't even go down that route.
mm. Well, man, that's an important question, and I feel like I should have a really pat answer for that, and I don't. Because there's probably a few things that would be
Or maybe like a
good
cost
advice.
a cost that they should maybe evaluate.
I would
Um,
say I think you probably gave me the answer there. I would say don't commit yourself to something without at least counting the cost of what it's going to be. And
mhm,
the problem is, of course, like with the metaphor of you and Kari hiking at the
mhm,
dunes, you can't always foresee what that might be. But
yeah.
I think if you do some research, today's day and age, you can research on the web and stuff and probably come up with some sort of good idea and maybe talk with people in the industry. There's ways you could like gauge what it might take to do whatever it is you want to do. But I think don't start it without counting the cost of what it might take to do it. And
Yeah.
just kind
And
of
then times that
figuring
by
out
three.
what am I willing to do? So, I mean, if you at least write down like, oh, I'm willing to spend about this much time and this much of my money or whatever, at least if you have that as kind of your guideline and then you
Mhm.
start in, you're like, oh, it's going to be 5 times that. Well, then you're like, okay, I'm really not going to pursue that for those because it way oversteps,
Yeah.
what I'm prepared to do.
And
So
maybe even saying, what am I willing to give this,
yeah,
in the beginning?
yeah, because
Um,
everybody nobody's going to have the same scenario in life. If you're married and you got, a newborn, is starting a business the right thing? Well,
exactly. Yeah.
maybe, but maybe not. So, if you're a single guy and you got time on your hands, maybe you've got a lot more. I mean, maybe that's way more feasible. So there's no pat answer for anybody in particular because every situation there. But I think you hit the nail on the head is what are you willing to give to this endeavor, and then kind of figure that out before you even venture down the road.
Yeah, and I feel like if it looks like a insurmountable amount of money or time, there's a couple different ways to look at it. You can look at it like buying a house and getting a mortgage, and you could say, hey, like I can't bite this all off at one time, so I'm going to dedicate this much time per week, this much money per week,
Right.
you know, and then you look at it and at the overall cost and you say, okay, if I do that now, how far does that put me into the future? How long is this going to take? And that's another way of kind of assessing it and seeing.
Yeah. I think,
and I can tell from myself, I did not do any of
yeah,
for this.
no,
it sounds like great
sure.
advice, but I definitely didn't follow that at all.
Yeah. I think that's experience speaking, because you know now what you know now. You're like, okay, well, you know, just knowing all the things I know, like, you know, I would tell somebody else the similar thing to, okay, at least be prepared for these things and think about them. It's just like, but it does go back to the values and stuff. Like Kiyosaki said, you know, about his Rich Dad, those of you that had at least know somewhat of his The Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, or that idea, you know, his poor dad would say, I'm not made of money, I can't afford that. And he said, you know, his rich dad would say, well, how can I afford that? So
exactly.
It's a matter of, if you really want something, you know, even if you're hampered by time and or resources, there might be a way for you to do it. You just have to get creative and figure out how could you, right? So it is, again, it goes back to problem solving. Thousands of little problems to solve, some bigger, some smaller, but it really just comes down to, you know, how much do you want the thing and what are you willing to give to it? And then what, of course, might you have to give up? So it's really a values question. And it depends on the person. So
that's a great answer. I love it.
Best I could give. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So the question I have to throw out is, we should at least mention this because of the nature of launching a business and then struggles and stuff. How many times do you think have we even moved the goalpost of, just to, you know, our audience, to where we're like, okay, this is our firm date, we'll be everything's solved and we'll have product ready? How many times have you think we've moved it? Have we lost track?
I've probably lost count. I would say maybe
at least 3, I think.
At least 3, but I mean, if you're counting years previous I've not told anybody that, oh, this is when I'm launching. I've told them, hey, I'm working on this product. But I would say we've probably had 3 different dates that I think we
gave ourselves at least 3 hard deadlines. We're like, hey, we're going to shoot for this. And, you know, then we got close to it. And I think we knew before that date came, like, okay, we're not going to make it, but we're just going to keep working, you know, up to that date and then reassess where we're at. So, would you say that having, I mean, for somebody else, if they're starting in whatever they do, having some sort of deadlines is a good thing for them? Or, I mean, have you found that beneficial at all in your thinking and operating, that we're like, okay, this is our goal?
It's
or does
good
it matter?
to have. I have mixed feelings on this because, like, I read so many like entrepreneurial things that say, hey, like having deadlines pushes you to get stuff done and helps you, like, kind of,
it probably does depend on the personality too.
Yeah. Be accountable in some ways. But I feel like when you get there and you don't hit that goal, it's like, man, it does not feel good.
Right. As I say, is it right? Would it be better to not set one and not miss it? It probably depends on the person, right? Because if they're motivated anyway and they're still going to make progress, maybe it's not a good idea, because then they're like, oh, well, I didn't make the 3rd deadline that I set for my, you know.
I would say at the same time, it kind of goes back to the failure thing, you know, like
right. Don't be afraid to fail.
We never like launched a business before, so we're learning as we go. And
true.
And or at least a physical product, you know.
You know what's funny? I actually just learned this too. And I'm relatively new in the manufacturing engineer and high volume automotive, but one of the things I just learned really within the last few months is that, and this is across the board, I think in any industry, it's not just automotive, but one of the things that actually really kills companies that already exist is launches, new product
Oh,
launches. It's across the board. Those are the ones that always go over budget over time.
mm-hmm.
And there's all these and see, it actually, when I was going through
Products like
and these are
physical
companies that have
products.
been
Yeah.
around for a long time doing the same kinds of things. So it actually made me feel kind of good about what we're doing. I'm like, okay, yeah, we've never done this. This is our first crack at this.
Yep.
And we have, limited resources and time and stuff like that. So, when I looked at that versus a multi million dollars of, companies, even billions, I actually don't feel so bad that, like, well, okay, we moved the goalpost 3 times and didn't hit it,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah. Uh,
Right.
but it just, I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that they're and they've moved the goalpost probably
Yeah.
2 or 3 or 4 times.
And just so our listeners are aware, like we have not sold any product or made any pre-sales on and had the intention
Right.
of taking money and like not delivering. We're not going to do that.
Yeah,
Like we
no,
will when we
no.
launch, we're going to
Right. When we launch, it's for real. We have
yeah,
product ready to sell and ship.
exactly. So, and that's one of the things is, um, yeah, a lot of times people will ask for stuff up front, and I think that's like part of our values, maybe
Yeah.
that pushes us to do it the way that we're doing. Is
We're
like,
old school.
yeah, we are old school.
Yeah, we're old school.
For sure.
I'm cool with that too.
Yeah,
Some people might, yeah, I think some people that probably like wreck them. They'd be like, no, you can't do it that way. You just gotta.
but yeah, and I think at the same time, like if like we could have, I mean, we have fully built prototypes. We know what we're doing essentially. We could have made pre-sales,
Yeah.
um, but and we could have taken more investors on
Yeah.
and different things. And I think part of it is like we like it's our company.
Yeah. I think the
To a certain degree,
autonomy,
but
yeah, the autonomy of knowing that we are in full control of what
yeah.
every aspect of the design and every little thing
Hmm.
is,
Well, I
because
mean,
when you take on an outside investor,
they want
normally they just want to see a return, even if they're kind of
exactly,
passionate about the project necessarily, they still want to see a return.
and I
And
would say
that's normal, right? For investing, you want return on your investment and you don't want to wait
mhm,
forever. You want it faster than later. So
exactly. And like years ago, I'm talking like 4 or 5 years ago, I've had multiple people hit me up,
yeah.
hey, like I would love to invest in this idea. I think what you have is a great product, a really good idea. The thing was, I knew they were not audio people, right?
Right.
And
Right.
without them
Exactly.
being passionate about it, like I am, like 5 years down the road, they're gonna
Yeah,
be
they're
like,
not going to
man,
understand your
I just need my money back. I don't care, just
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't gonna do that to myself. And
Right. And
um,
you're being fair to them too, because
yeah,
you kind of right between the lines, like, well, this is not, this is not a fly by
I'm
night
like,
kind of
yeah.
quick turnaround thing.
And for me, like I'm okay with failure, but I don't think they are once they stick their money on the line on my
Right.
project.
Right.
And that's the really cool part about this too, is we've been able to curate a really, really cool product and not felt pushed to launch before we felt, hey, this
Yeah.
is fully ready.
Before we were
Like
ready.
we've
Hmm.
made so many renditions and so many
Yeah.
different prototypes, different iterations
I
of
don't think we've even,
prototypes.
I think we've made so many that we really haven't even cataloged. Like, I
No.
mean, if I would have kept a revision log of probably everything, it would be a lot. It's just more the
Yeah.
major. But that's,
Well, and
yeah.
then sometimes it's not even, some of it was almost revamping from the beginning. And
Right.
then some of it was just like internal components,
It was like, you got it up
And
here
then
and you're like, okay, I'm going to start from kind of from base one again and rebuild
yeah.
and change all these
Yep.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
got to a certain point where I was like, okay, like this is not going to cut it. Not if I actually like, I want a good product. And so
Right.
then, but I was like, I had the vision. I had something in my hand that was tangible that was kind of worked. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
You
well,
had a
what do I have
baseline
to
to
do to
start
get
with.
there?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, depending on the sector that somebody's in, the people you meet, that's fantastic. I think I mean, I don't know. There's so many things you could think about product wise you could bring to market that are so different that are not audio related that I mean, I don't know if there's communities like what we have with what we do. So, I mean, that's kind of special in a way where we're situated, being something that we're passionate about and we really enjoy. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, for definitely. Sure. And that's one of the reasons we're still here, still doing it, you know?
Right. Let's see. Okay. I'll check the timer. How many minutes do you think we're at?
I'm going to say 30.
46.
46. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we made it. We hit the mark.
We did. So, we hit the mark. Cool.
Yeah. Do we want to set another launch date here? No.
Yeah. No. I'll set a very safe launch date
or maybe not even a launch date, like a hypothetical, or not hypothetical, but like a, how would I say that? Estimate, a guesstimation.
A guesstimation. I mean, hypothetical guesstimate. Okay, let's just put our estimate down. We'll act like we're playing closest to the pin in golf, but except for with a calendar. I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say what I hope because I might be wrong there. I think early November. I'm going to say November 5th.
November 5th.
That is my on or before November.
I'm going to say December 14th because that's my birthday.
There you go. Close to your anniversary too.
Yeah.
There you go.
It'll
birthday,
be a great
close
time.
To anniversary.
We'll have a great party.
That'd be a good party. Yeah. You're going to, we're going to be ready to go, and you're going to, in November, and you'll be like, we're going to have to hold off for another month and 5 days because
it's not my birthday yet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Maybe we'll surprise ourselves. Maybe it'll be middle into September, but never know. Like that's, I think there's a reasonable estimate. Hopefully before Christmas though. I would love to at least be able to bring the product out and get it to hands of some customers at Christmas time. I think that'd be fun.
Be fantastic
for people to have that for Christmas and the end of the year and start the new year with. So we'll see. It's a journey. We'll see where we end up.
Yes, sir. Well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully you got something from that. If you're an entrepreneur looking to start up a company, whether it's a physical product or anything really, whether it's audio related or not, maybe you were able to glean some metaphors and different concepts here for starting your business. But yeah, if you guys haven't, go check out our website and our YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe to it, we're going to try and keep you guys updated, and definitely check out the podcast and subscribe to that as well.
We'll have more, hopefully soon.
All right. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys.